Hi everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Velvet Lounge Life. Please do me a favor and give us a thumbs up. And if you don't like the videos, a thumbs down is fine. Just leave a reason why that's respectful. We are unedited, uncut, and this is how I have to present the episode to you, with 100% spoilers in an attempt to not have a copyright issue. So you will have dozens of photos from the episode, and here we go because there's a lot to cover. But remember that thumbs up does make a difference to us. So thank you so much for watching. So what happened in Poldark land? So Ross, as you know, was attacked by a bunch of scoundrels. So no one knows what happened to him other than the Mercier brothers. Yes, note the word brothers there. I will tell you more about that later. But Ralph and his crony, of course, know where he is. The prison governor dude knows where Ross is, but no one else knows, so the search continues. Ross, as you know, is at the bottom of this mine shaft, which is really, really deep. So obviously they really wanted to murder him and never have his body found, but also have him suffer. As Ross is laying there on the ground, he's sort of going through a dreamscape of sorts, where he's remembering things about, now he's figuring out what's happened with the Mercier brothers. Remember, one of them is the governor of the prison. He's remembering some of the words that they said about Ned. He's remembering some things that, people he thought he could trust, said about Ned as well. And also about him, and how he ended up in this situation. So there he is. And Dr. Ennis proposes that Kitty live with him and Caroline for a while until she really figures out what she wants to do. Obviously, Kitty is still very distraught. She's still angry, but she uses her anger in a productive manner because she wants the people that basically murdered her husband Ned brought to justice. So as you can see, Ross fully awakens. He awakens. He's, not someone just to sit around. So, of course, he is going to try to find a way out of this mine shaft. George smiles, but uncomfortably. I thought that was very interesting that he was uncomfortable about the conversation that's taking place between himself, Ralph, who is Cecily's father, and the warden of the prison, Mr. Mercier. There's a spoiler. I'm going to spoil it for you right now. Mr. Mercier and Ralph, who is Cecily's father, are half brothers. That was a huge shocker. So Ross, as I said, isn't waiting around. He's battered, he's, bruised, he has broken ribs, but he's still trying to make his way out of the mine. In the meantime, a note is passed to Jeffrey Charles. Jeffrey and Cecily are still trying to work out a plan since, their first plan failed, as to how they could get her out of Cornwall and the two of them could go and live happily ever after. Ross discovers an evil French plot as he is trying to get out of this mine. He actually trips into some other business he didn't expect, as well as the fact that he discovers who is stealing his ore. He doesn't know that Demelza and his manager, of course, know who the culprits are yet, but, now he has a lot more to deal with on his plate. I mean, what else is new? So Ralph wants to continue his bad business contract plan with George. And George and his uncle are basically saying to themselves at this point, I don't think that we want to deal with these guys. You know, they bring way too much luggage with them. As you know, George is not like the most beloved person in London, let alone Cornwall. And he's listening to Ralph describe the fact that, you know, him and his brother threw poor Ross down into a mine shaft, as well as he confesses to murdering Mr. Ballantyne, that's B with a B, Ballantyne, as well as other horrible things that they've done. And this little boy is unfortunately, you know, no one even cares that he's in the room when they say this stuff. And Valentine actually speaks up and said that his opinion should be required. And the reason that he said that is because he didn't like what happened and he had comments about that. So George is perhaps talking to Ghost again. Ross, of course, escapes the mine shaft. And as he's walking down this road, Dr. Ennis actually encounters him. But Dr. Ennis was also searching for him, and he could see that he is in a bad way. So there's a conversation being had between these two about the fact that Ross has now discovered who all the evildoers are. And Dr. Ennis kind of wonders if Ross is really sure, because Mercier just seems like such an unlikely person. And this is the guy who is the governor of the prison we're talking about. He seems like such an unlikely person to be involved in such shenanigans. I just wanted to say shenanigans, just saying. So Ross tells, Demelza a sort of the truth, but like a half truth, because he leaves out a lot of details and changes a few, because he does not want her, to get involved. He's trying to protect her because the people that are involved are incredibly dangerous. And hey, they've already murdered Ned and others. Ironically, I thought this was great. Rosina makes a visit to Morwenna. Imagine that. Drake's ex and potential fiance that he left at the altar, and his actual wife. And Rosina basically is confiding in, and she's not really confiding. She's really just telling Morwenna that all these horrible things are happening. Tess is involved, and she even tells on her own father being involved in the mine thefts, as well as, Tess is up to not only the mine situation as far as stealing the ore, her father's involved with that, as well as Tess is, of course, up to something with Sam. So yes, there is a sneaky Tess. She pretends that she still wants to learn how to read, which she is actually learning how to read a little bit. And Sam seems to be smitten with her a little bit. And I mean more than he was with Rosina. Rosina is not pleased, of course. And while in the mine, it is discovered that there are explosives, there are guns, there's gunpowder, all sorts of cannons, all sorts of weaponry and supplies. Other than knowing French folks are involved, no one really understands why that stuff is there and what's going on. And guess who discovers it? Demelza and her brother, Drake. Should they be in that mine right now? No, I'm telling you no. So they come back to Ampara, and Ross and their manager happens to be there, and they tell them what they found. They don't know that Ross already knows what's there, and he's trying to work on, some plan. So there's hugs, there's kisses. I'm so glad you're safe. I'm so glad that you're not dead. You're a little bit beat up, and you're going to do what? Go to London again? Dude, are you kind of joking right now? I could tell you Demelza was not pleased, but Ross actually has no choice. He wants to go to London so that he can talk to people who are above those that he know are evil culprits, if it's even possible, you know, because part of his issue is who in the hierarchy isn't, you know, a crook or doesn't have their hand out. So he actually bids adieu to his friends. But in the meantime, his friends decide maybe we should all go with you. We all have stuff that we need to work on. We need to work on clearing Ned's name. You know, of course, we have all these other issues with the Merciers in the prison. And yes, even Caroline is on her way. And I like how they've made Caroline a stronger character. Not strong in necessarily strength or whatever. She still likes pretty things, but you could tell they kind of toned down the overly done hair and overly done makeup. And she is more of like a serious businesswoman, wife person partner than she was, you know, a person who actually inherited from her parents and was going to live la vida loca. And, you know, by the way, she's married to a doctor. Like, she's no longer that particular person anymore. So a few people in this episode see a ghost in the form of the living, breathing Ross Poldark. And shock. This dude is sure that he is at the end, you know, bottom of that mine shaft, dying or dead at this point. And this is the Mercier brother that actually runs the prison. He's the governor there. And you're going to find out that he has a lot of power. He literally has power over all of the east of London. And because of that, he is actually the highest part of the hierarchy for the east end of London when it comes to every position in every elected area of government that there is. So, you know, if a loaf of bread is sold, he pretty much knows that. If the sewage system isn't working correctly, he's, you know, he knows that. So he is a very dangerous man. He also has the power to have people executed. And there he is with Ralph admitting at this point that they're brothers. No one has known that at this point. And I thought that the casting of the actors here was awesome because these guys sort of look like they could be brothers. One is a little bit older than the other, but they definitely look like they could be related. So a little trip is made so that Ross can sort of try to figure out, like, what can I do? I'm going to go visit Mr. Wickham. Maybe, perhaps, hopefully, he's one of the last few honest people in government and in London, in the house. But come to find out that he is in the pocket of the Mercier brothers. Yes, he is. And why? Because just like Ross, just like Ned and others, he felt as if, unlike Ross and Ned, though, this guy doesn't, his spine is a little bit wiggly. Not Ross and Ned will actually die if it, you know, serves a purpose that is far beyond themselves and will drastically change the world, or even change London, or change England or the UK for hundreds of thousands, let alone millions of people. This guy, he was just frightened. And I get it, because, you know, if you could possibly be given a death sentence like Ned was for no reason and you're completely innocent, and you've actually seen that happen more than, one time, then it's understandable why he is not, you know, as willing to put his neck out there. Sorry, excuse the pun. But he does tell Ross that if he is going to fight these people, he needs concrete proof. And Ross is just like disgusted, flabbergasted. Why? Because he just can't believe that so much of everything is incredibly rotten. Poor Cecily is waiting for a note from Jeffrey Charles that hasn't come yet, and she knows that time is running out. In the meanwhile, you have Kitty, Dr. Ennis, and Caroline in the park, spreading the word about the Mercier brothers, about the fact that at the prison they actually do human experiments without the consent of the prisoners. And, it doesn't matter, man, woman, child, they're doing horrible things. Dr. Frankenstein. And there's Caroline helping. And when they won't listen to Kitty, because Caroline does have influence, she will pick up on those that just walk past Kitty because she knows them and her family ties, and get them engaged in a conversation about the evils that are taking place, hoping that this will bring down the Mercier brothers. Ross witnesses their campaign going on, and he does not interfere. He's, I think he's sort of like, wow, this is amazing. This is what happens when people can come together. In the meantime, guess who else has seen a ghost? George. He is sure that Ross has finally met his maker, and guess what? Just like a cat, this guy has 9 lives plus bonuses. And while Ross is sort of like just thinking to himself, he's reflecting on some of the patriotic, heroic, historical things that Ned has said, as a way to sort of keep him going, keep his eye on the prize. And there's Ned when he was on the scaffolding. But while in Empara, guess who has some really good and cool news? Drake and Moena. They are going to have a baby. Everyone is super happy. And who is that sitting at the table making googly gaga eyes at Sam? Yes. Tess actually is sitting at Demelza and Ross's dinner table. Ross isn't there, of course. Demelza is there. And of course, good old Prudy is there. And they are keeping an eagle and hawk eye on her. While in the park, one of the things that Kitty, Dr. Ennis, and Caroline did is they handed out pamphlets that describe the atrocities that are taking place at the prison, and also other evils that the Mercier brothers have been up to. The Mercier brothers know that they've been on this campaign, so they set out to scare Caroline, because they think that, she's this, very gentle, gentry kind of woman who probably sits around petting little Horace and knitting. They don't understand that she has gumption. And of course, she is an excellent horsewoman. So when they tried to get her thrown off of her stallion, she actually could hold the course and did not fall. And she just, was a little winded, a little shaken up. So Kitty and Dr. Ennis are talking about, what else can we do to, get results? And of course, they want to get results quickly because things are just so dangerous. So it was decided a good idea, which Kitty had started herself, is to write letters to the Prime Minister, to the Queen of England, etc. Yeah, Caroline gets chastised. Why? Because she really put herself out there in a dangerous situation. And of course, Dr. Ennis is like, you should have stayed home versus coming to London. You know that things are really dangerous. And he even throws his papers down on the desk. I was like, whoa, look at you. Who do you think you are all of a sudden? And Kitty comes in and she is basically, she unfortunately hears Caroline say something about the relationship that Dr. Ennis and Kitty have as friends. They're friends, that's it. But Caroline is jealous, and she even says that earlier in the episode. Demelza and Sam, oops, sorry about that. Demelza and Sam talk about, him getting his head out of the clouds when it comes to Tess. The fact that Tess is very dangerous and, she's 100% up to no good regardless. And she's already done horrible things to her family. And she also gives Tess a really good, strong tongue lashing, basically letting her know, this crap is not going to fly. And, you better watch yourself. Like, we have our eye on you. But Tess has a nerve to say, and I quote, she is still going to, quote, heed your brother. I don't know what this heeding of her brother means, but if it means what I think it means and what people would probably do today that have no morals and scruples, Des and Prudy better really turn up the volume on this girl. So Cecily escapes from her father's house with the help of Jeffrey Charles and her maid, and they're now asking Ross to help them, hopefully get married. George and his evil unk, as I like to call him, they also return to Trenwith because they are trying to distance themselves from all the problems that the Mercier brothers are bringing up. And, of course, with their relationship with George and his uncle, they're kind of in the middle of it. So Cecily and Jeffrey Charles, as well as Ross, are on their way back to Ampara from London. And there's a miniature quick family reunion. But guess who else is following in a different carriage? They're not trying to chase them down. He has no idea that Cecily is at Ross's house, but he knows that she's somewhere in Cornwall. So he makes an uninvited visit to George's house. Now there's a scene where he basically kind of stomps in and tells the housemaid and cook what he wants to eat without even like acknowledging George and his uncle. It's like he took over, he moved in. So while looking for some stationery for Caroline to help with the writing of the letters to the Prime Minister, etc., Kitty's whole writing campaign plan, she discovers the notes on George Warlegan and his insanity sickness that he has been going through. And Dr. Ennis just happens to walk in, snatches the papers out of her hand, and is like, oh my God, what are you doing? Are you just looking for stuff for gossip? And of course she is taken aback and offended that, this is her husband. Like, Dr. A, he better take a chill pill because it's sort of like he forgot where he came from. And Jeffrey Charles, of course, and Ross and company are trying to come up with another plan, as I said earlier, to help Cecily and him get to, and it's decided that they would get to America if possible. Poor little Horace. I mean, these people stop at nothing. They attacked Caroline's dog by trying to feed it poison. And Dr. Ennis thankfully happened to be home and was able to give the dog an antidote. So that really, she was already pissed off with everything going on, like her relationship with Dr. Ennis, getting jealous a little bit of Kitty in a most respectful way. And of course, all of the stuff that's going on and everything seems in a turmoil. So she's like, I don't give a crap. She actually stomped her way over to George and his uncle's house and told them they better stop this stuff and they better not, intimidate or try to do anything harmful to her family, the Poldarks, or Kitty. And George is basically saying he agrees. As we all know, him agreeing is, you have to take it with a grain of salt. His uncle, has a screwed up face and he's kind of like, and because George basically said something to him to the effect of, why do I care about these two crazy guys? Like, why should I even be concerned with them? And his uncle is like, the reason that you need to try to protect those three families, meaning the Poldarks, the Ennises, as well as Kitty, is because it's really protecting you. And this was like probably one of the more shameful scenes. It's Sam and Tess bowing down to pray. What's shameful about it is you know that Tess could care less. That rhymed, and I didn't do that on purpose. So Dr. Ennis gives little Horace a completely clean bill of health, and that's a happy family portrait. And Kitty comes in, and, you know, now this really is sort of the last straw for her. And she's like, you know what? All of this stuff is going on, and some of it is probably happening because of me and Ned, obviously. And I think it's time for me to leave. Ross, as he's trying to get down to the ocean, because he's, you know, his plan is to get this boat, or they already have it, and to row Cecily and Jeffrey Charles out to a larger ship that will be coming soon so that they could go to America. But while he's just simply about his business, these French renegades just come out of nowhere, and they're fully armed. And yes, they do take him. He's taken. And at this point, we have Cecily and Jeffrey Charles saying goodbye to Demelza and everyone because they think that they are going to be getting on this ship. Of course, none of them know that Ross has been taken. And it is taking a while for him to get back home. So Demelza goes out by herself, sassy lady, and she's looking for Ross, wondering what's happening because she knows it shouldn't take this long. And she signals the ship. The ship signals her back, and you know she sees the boat is there. There's no oars. There's no Ross. Ross is trying to talk his way out of being murdered again because the French dude that took him is actually someone that he's met in his past when he was at the French prison. And he's like, you know, trying to figure out a way to get out of this without obviously losing his life. Demelza and her crew are down at the ocean trying to figure out what to do. And Ross has a knife at his neck. He does talk himself out of the situation, basically by telling this French renegade fellow who used to be a French soldier and maybe still is that, you know, basically look at me. Look at what all of these folks have done to me. All I've wanted to do is good. Look at what they've done to my family. Look at what they've done to friends. Look at what they've done to anyone that has wanted to make the world a better place. Why would I be committed to those, basically the English folks? I'm almost just like you. Like, we can work together. The guy actually falls for it. But unfortunately, while this is going on, poor Jeffrey Charles is getting beaten within an inch of his life simply because of love. If you think about it, that's what it is. George tries to figure out what he can do to help the situation with the Mercier brothers because he knows it's all going to come back on him and there's already backlash on him. Remember in the previous episode, he was being shunned by everyone, and he's now noticed that these Mercier brothers have also been shunned. And so he tries to pay off the governor of the prison, that particular brother, and the brother is like, you know, I want double. And after claiming he wanted double the cash, he actually throws the check or whatever this receipt is back at George and decides he doesn't want anything. So we have Cecily, who is just up in arms because she sees poor Jeffrey Charles on the ground and he appears to be dead. She screams. Her father tells her he's not dead, but he will be if I ever catch you two together again, and if you ever try to like leave with him ever again. Like he never wants her to see him ever again. So Ross made his deal with the French, and he's going to be free. Cecily and Jeffrey Charles have a conversation, whereas she tells him that, you know, she has to go off into the world alone. You know, she's she just has to go her own way. And she's saying this because of her father's warning. Of course, Jeffrey Charles is brokenhearted because he loves her. And she loves him as well. So Jeffrey Charles, Ross, and Demelza and the Ennises come up with a plan that will still help Cecily, even though Jeffrey Charles and her will no longer be together. A ship is leaving for Jamaica, and on that ship you will have Cecily, yes, and of course Kitty. So goodbyes are being said, and Dr. Ennis received all of the evidence that he needs to bring the Mercier brothers and others to justice, thanks to Kitty. And their final kiss goodbye, Jeffrey Charles and Cecily. And he cries, she cries, there are tears everywhere. And it was a very sad scene. And then, of course, you have everyone bidding them, farewell as well as a safe voyage. So Ross tells Dr. Ennis that he has an ultimate plan, the craziest plan ever, but he's going to do it. It's a huge gamble. Please keep an eye on Demelza because I am going to do some crazy, crazy, insane stuff that will make no sense to anyone. And things may seem to be out of order, but I promise you they're not. It's part of a plan. And George and his uncle are very concerned. They're concerned about the Merciers, and they're concerned about Caroline telling George's medical history to the world. In the meantime, there you go. Ross is back with the French, trying to shore up part of his plan. And that was the end of the episode.